Hey up and welcome to the Temple of Bleh, episode V. This is probably the closing chapter to my obsession with the Great Kat. It's a conversation with the Great Kat's bassist for the Worship Me or Die period, Tom Von Doom. Now this is an absolute corker for me. There's so much laughing upon review when I was doing the edit. Tom is the head of post-production at Cinema Libre Studio over in Los Angeles. I never asked if Tom's experience with the Great Kat led him into a completely separate industry altogether. Regardless, he's not in a band at the minute, but I do recommend you go and follow him on Facebook and all the socials and stuff. He's an extremely nice dude, and you'll come across in this interview where he basically tells us the story of how he got to know the Kat, how he got in the band, his experience with Worship Me or Die. Really is a good laid-back conversation. So thanks again, Tom, for giving me your time. It's been fun as hell learning your side of the story from you, so thanks for that. Without further ado, let's jump straight in. 1, 2, fuck shit up.
We did it.
Go. Oh my God.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Tom, not too bad. Yeah, I knew I caught you in the middle of your work day, so I was just like, I'll make a cup of coffee. I'll do a
Working
bit.
nowadays.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much for taking the time and responding to my
pleasure.
Facebook stuff out of the blue. I think the best thing we can do is take this chronologically because there's no
Sure.
finer way for it. So how did you end up meeting Kat? How did this all come about?
I answered a classified ad in the Village Voice looking for a bass player and got sucked into Kat's world.
Right.
It was, she was just looking for musicians.
Did she specify her background? Was she like, I will not accept anything less than a certain standard of bassist?
I don't remember specifically what was in the ad. I don't think it was as cat-like as she became, because she would have scared everybody off.
Yeah.
And she was trying to legitimately get people to play with her. And I auditioned and I got the gig. I had some good credentials.
Mm-hmm.
I could play, but a lot of it was also if you could hang with Kat, if you could just get into the groove with her and be present with her thing, her just big personality and go along with it. And I was like, yeah, sure.
Sure. Was Adam in the band?
We got along. We got along great.
Yeah. You had to be if you were with her for 4 years, right?
Oh no, it wasn't that long. Maybe a year and a half.
Really?
It was the first record and the first music video.
Were you not on Beethoven on Speed?
No.
Really? You're listed on it.
No. Am I?
Yeah.
That's funny.
That is funny.
I didn't play on that at all. I wonder who that is. It was probably just Kat.
You know what? That sounds quite likely, actually. No, you on it on the. I think it was the Metal Archives. I'm going to double check that.
Interesting.
That is interesting, isn't it?
That's funny. Well, what the hell? I'll take it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Yourself and Adam are on there. Was Adam part of the band at this time when you first joined, or was that a? Nope.
Adam, we had a very Spinal Tap, rotating drummer situation. Every other week we had a new drummer.
Yeah.
We did some very serious searching for a drummer for the record.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewed a lot of people. Interviewed Greg Bissonette from David Lee Roth's band. We interviewed the drummer from White Lion. What was his name? Maybe it'll come to me. We interviewed the drummer from Slayer, the fill-in drummer at the time. It was Tony Scaglione.
Oh, right, okay.
From Whiplash, and he was playing with Slayer at the time. He went on to play with some good friends of mine called Raging Slab,
right,
which was a great band in the 80s, part of the New York metal scene. And we were just trying to get anybody who thought they could play the parts, to come in and play.
Did Tad Lager play for him for Cat at some point? Tad from Toxic.
He may have later, not when I was. I could also be forgetting. There were so many.
Yeah, he's listening again on Metal Archives, but I've got a friend who knows him, and he said, "Oh, it's fake that," and I was like, "Oh, maybe he was just interviewed or something like that." But
we talked to lots of people, but wound up going with Adam, and Adam sort of came in at the last minute, out of the blue. Again, just I think he answered and had, or was recommended by somebody. I don't remember specifically.
Yeah.
But he was really one of the only drummers who came in and played and could keep up. The parts are hard. They're fast and they're aggressive. And
was that the deal with the other drummers you interviewed? Was it a speed thing, or was it the personality, or was it a mixture of the two?
Well, there was both. If you were capable of playing those parts, if you were that good, you had an ego.
Yeah.
So there's not room in the band for two massive egos. But Adam was very personable, and of course he had an ego, but he was he was fun to hang out with. There were a lot of guys who came in and played for a few weeks, and we learned all the parts, and we got through everything. And Kat was a taskmaster. She was very hard on the musicians, and it's like fair enough. It's like world-class musicianship. But a lot of rock musicians are not used to that sort of classical world level of pressure.
Yeah.
So they couldn't hang with it.
How did you end up? Now I've got a story from Steve Ricardo from Roadrunner on this one, but is it true that you initially sent a tape to? I can't remember what the label was when he was working there. Christ, it wasn't Roadrunner. It was his predecessor to Roadrunner. It was a West Coast label, whatever it was. But either way, Steve liked it, but he didn't. But he didn't send a rejection postcard. He said, "This is great, but I don't think it's right for this label at this point. But I'm going to keep tabs on you." And on the strength of that, you guys flew out to LA to see him.
That was before I was in the band.
Right. Yeah, perfect. That's fine then.
Yeah, they had. There were a couple of guys who played with her and did an EP with Kat before I joined, which I think was released on Roadrunner.
I'm gonna check.
I'm not sure.
Death Records Inc.
Oh, okay. There you go. It may have just been Kat's, personal release, but it helped generate excitement for the project. And
yeah, the catalog ID for that EP is K666. So that suggests that.
Of course it is.
Awesome. How did they? So what was from your perspective then? When did the Roadrunner gig come about? Or were you sat with? Was it with Cat signed?
It was already the relationship was already established by the time I joined the band. It was the guys from Roadrunner were coming down to rehearsals and listening to what we were doing, and checking in with us, weekly, as we got ready to record.
Yeah.
And I was in the band maybe 6 months before we did the recording. So that's, at least 6 drummers.
Did you attend the signing party?
Probably.
At Bebop's in New York.
Right.
Yeah, that's quite a famous party from my research, just because I think I don't know if it was Bob that did the photos at the party, but there are some good photos, and a lot of it is with Steve Ricardo and Kat just sort of like smoozing around and being crazy kids. But there's some of Case Vessels, who's the owner of Roadrunner, and he's a rarely photographed individual. So it's just it's so cool that one of the pictures.
I probably met him once.
What did he make of him in that? That's more than what some people, more times than some people met him. So what was your impression?
Right. Yeah. He was very, he was intense.
Yeah.
He had a sort of intense personality. It wasn't like friendly and gregarious, but he was nice.
Yeah.
We didn't hang out drinking or anything.
Yeah. I think the relationship between Case and the bands are, well, the bands are the asset. The bands aren't people. Right. The bands are assets.
Yeah, it was all business.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you go into the studio with Kurt Shaw. Well, actually, you go into the studio with someone else, and they get sacked 2 days.
Yes. Carrot Faye.
Who was that?
Carrot Faye.
Carrot Faye.
Carrot Faye was the original producer.
Can you spell the first name?
He produced Megadeth's first record.
Ah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Now we're getting to the real information.
We're getting to stuff I don't know, because I know Kurt was like, I think it was in Kurt's studio, and his sort of recollection was, I just heard a lot of shouting, and then Kat came bursting through the door and said, "Kurt, I respect you. Can you do the producing?"
Right. Yeah. It was.
We count the tale.
Carrot was a character. He he may have done a good job producing the record or not. I don't know about that. He was a party guy. We hung out drinking and partying more than talking about what kind of recording mics we were going to use. But great guy. I probably talked to him maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He was living in Indianapolis or something, where he was from, just somewhere in the middle of the USA.
How did he get the sack then? Was that just because it was a personality clash and chairs were thrown?
Yep. It's either you're on the Cat bandwagon or you're not.
Yeah. So when you go into
and eventually everyone gets pushed to the point where they're like, "Fuck it, I don't need this." And if you're at that point,
that's it.
The Cat's done with you.
Yeah. Yep. Worship Die was, in terms of like the overall aesthetic for Cat, is quite interesting, because it starts out BDSM. It's largely sexually driven, the imagery, and then when you go over to Beethoven on Speed, she's been given a steer to really play up to the Juilliard background. But Worship Me or Die, it's easier to describe what that album isn't rather than what it is, because it is fast and it is brutal, but it is shreddy as far as like the guitar is concerned. But you can see when you know Kat in the context of her now, in terms of like the Juilliard background, it makes a lot more sense as to like how that album's developed. So didn't Kat go in with a mission statement, I guess, is the overall question I've got about the
album. It's interesting. There was if you listen to like the first EP compared to Worship Me or Die, the music arrangements are different.
Okay.
And I like to think it's because of my influence. But on the EP, everything was as fast as possible. All the drums are like, and when I came into the band, I was like, let's try and groove a little, and
Mm.
let's do some slower things like on Metal Messiah.
Mhm.
Dun, 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 dun. And she wasn't doing anything like that before I was in the band. So
Yeah.
I feel like taking credit for that. But then, like you said, Beethoven on Speed was much more classically influenced, and I think went back in that direction of, very staccato, fast, sort of one note arrangements.
Which is cool because I like.
Whereas I was trying to bring in different tempos and different grooves and things.
The appeal for me is the guitar aspect, just like going down the line and going, this is a guitar arrangement of Beethoven, because you don't get that. There's Ingvar Malmsteen, who is neoclassical, but he's not neoclassical. He's harmonic minor virtuoso. That's a different thing.
Right.
He's
still a blues guitar player.
Yeah, totally. That's interesting to say that.
Whereas Cat is playing violin on guitar. Yeah,
that's exactly what Kurt said as well. Exactly, almost word for word. So as someone like, I mean, on the Beethoven on Speed sort of era, we'll call it an era. All the press stuff and all the TV appearances, she's just screaming about just bridging the gap between classical and metal. And it's like, right, that's exactly what I wanted when I was learning to play guitar. I wanted someone to be able to like bridge that gap for me, and I didn't get it. I just had a harmonic minor arpeggios from Malmsteen, which is all good, well and good, but it's not quite what I was asking for. So it's just, to me, it's interesting that she never got the limelight she probably deserved in that respect. I think there's still a place for her really at the table when people are sort of like growing into their own musicianship and going, all right, well, what are the influences here? You got all the fast guitarists, you got the groove guitarists, you got this, you got that, blah, blah, blah. Kat should really be there, in my opinion. But she isn't. She's doing fucking cooking shows on YouTube.
Right. Well, for whatever reason, she concocted this big persona to promote herself, and then I don't know if she did herself any favors by being so confrontational and aggressive. And I think she definitely should be recognized more for her talent. But
if nothing
no matter
else,
what you think about her, she is an incredibly talented musician.
This is the thing. I mean, I think the way I like to phrase it is we live in a post-Liam Gallagher world, which is my way of saying you're allowed to be an absolute twat if you bring the goods. And Kat did that, but she transversed those eras. So I guess maybe she came
a little before her time.
Yeah, maybe. But in terms of where my blind spot is, it seems to be between Worship Me or Die, and the Beethoven on Speed bit. There's some point in those 3 years where someone, it might have been Monty Connor from Roadrunner at the time, it might have been wherever, somewhere she took a left turn, because Worship Me or Die is kind of, I think it's more sexually driven. It feels more about female empowerment more than it does metal for metal's sake. If that,
I mean, she was very influenced by that. Besides music, she felt that she wanted to do metal because of its relationship to classical music, but she also felt constrained by the society's rules about loud women and being aggressive and out and so there was definitely some of that. It wasn't just music that influenced her. Definitely.
It's how do I it's I just find it, her entire story is just interesting. There's that perspective, and it kind of plays further down the line as well. There's an appearance she makes on the Morton Downey Jr. show, which I don't know.
I was there.
Were you on that bit?
I was.
Tell me everything.
I was in the audience.
No way.
Yep.
What year was this then?
87.
Right, it must have been part of the press cycle, right? That must have been set up by Steve or Holly.
Yeah, it was after the record, I think, and when the record had just come out, maybe before we did the music video. But yeah, it was, that was Morton Downey's thing. It was, it was push people until they broke and then throw them off the show. And that was certainly why he had Kat on there, and what everyone expected to happen, was the two of them to fight, and we'd get thrown off. But I'll tell you what surprised me was they threw us off the show and out of the building. It's like, I thought we'd just go back to the green room and hang, but no, they're like, out the front door. Do not come back inside.
Hey man, it was if you.
I don't know if that was just because of Kat or that was the normal way they treated guests they threw up the show. But the
point the link I was going to make was on that bit. You can see that she's not getting overwhelmed by everyone shouting at her. She's not. She's still holding her own, but she's understanding that she hasn't got the floor. No one's letting her get the floor. And she punches through and sort of goes, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it was basically, the reason you're hiding behind that cigarette is because you're scared of powerful women like me. That was kind of the MO. And that was what I'm referring to when I'm saying, like, that seems to be one of the driving forces. And it's so, looking back on it now and going, that stuff's going to kill you and you don't know how to handle people. And then obviously she gets marched off. She gets her marching orders, and he did not survive that ordeal with the cigarettes. So, not saying poetic justice, and just saying, fucking hell, she definitely was before her time, man. Was Bob with you
what's that?
Was Bob with you that day, Mr. Gruen?
I don't think so.
He said that they got a car over, or they got the bus over, or something like that. And then Kat stopped and got a load of candy because she wasn't a drugs person, but she did hop herself up on sugar before she went on the show.
Did Bob say he was on the show?
He said that he went with her for moral support, but there was some contention over.
Maybe he was there. I mean, it was 35 years ago. It's possible.
In my chat with him, we also say, was it Morton Downey Jr.? And he was like, speaking to who I think it was his missus, who was obviously there at the time as well, like, oh, which show was it we went on? And they seemed to think it was Morton Downey Jr. It could have been any, but yeah, apparently he went with her for like moral support, and similar to presumably why you were there as well. And right, that was her way of getting geared up, was to just shovel candy into her face and go at it.
Yeah, well, she wasn't going to do drugs or alcohol, so she needed something.
Definitely
to get pumped up.
I just think it's really. I don't even know. There's so many things to pull. There's so many threads to pull with Kat. There's so many. In your experience with it, was it a character, or was she kind of through and through that person? Was she asking to be worshipped because the character demanded it, or was there an inner need for that to be satisfied?
They're both. I mean, the Great Kat was sort of a character that she created. Mm-hmm. One thing that you probably won't hear from a lot of people is how influential her mother was. Her mother was a very powerful, forceful woman who, she was sort of the behind the scenes.
Right. Tell me everything about this, because this is something
she was very interesting. She's like, she would say, "Tom, I know how to create geniuses. Stick with us. We'll make you rich and famous."
Was she British, her mum?
She was Mexican.
Mexican, okay, and it was just Kat that was born in the UK.
Right, and her dad was Syrian.
Right, okay,
something like that. But they were. He did public relations. He had a big public relations company. And she helped him with that.
It's all coming together.
Yeah, it's very interesting. but her mom was there all the time.
Yeah.
Like, rehearsals and record company meetings and everything. And, with me and my friends who had experience with the music industry and the film industry, would try and sort of help them. Like, this is our experience and this is how we, deal with these situations.
Yeah.
But they had their own ideas about interacting with people.
They raised a Juilliard grad, so I guess there's some merit there, I guess.
Fair enough. Enough. As Kat used to call it, the jail yard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the jail yard. She had some
see.
Interesting stories about going there. Like in the practice rooms, they would have pianos. But the legend was that some students would go in there and stick razor blades in between the keys to eliminate the competition. So if you were in there in the practice room, you had to be very careful. I have no idea if that's true, but that was one of the stories.
I do find it interesting that she obviously her background was in classical music, and she did profess to that into, I think she did a concert for the mayor of New York at the time. She went on a couple of tours, but I guess I'd love to understand why she turned on to metal. I think the word is that she heard a Judas Priest song and that sort of clicked in her head. In my head,
she was more disillusioned with the world of classical music. She was a soloist.
Yeah.
And she wanted to play, violin solos with orchestras. At that time, there were no positions available for female violin virtuosos.
Yeah.
It was all guys playing the solos in orchestras. And she couldn't break in. And, she was certainly good enough. It was definitely, gender-based.
Yeah.
And she did hear, Judas Priest one day and was like, what is that? That sounds like opera. And she started to explore it. And she's like, this is my way into the music world. I'm going to do this new thing.
I guess one question which you might not know is, between discovering metal and forming the band, how long had she actually been playing guitar? It'd be interesting to know how transferable the violin skills are to guitar.
Not as long as you would think. When I joined the band, she'd been playing 3 years.
Jesus.
Maybe?
What?
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah. In my head canon anyway.
You should have heard her practice violin. She'd play, she'd practice guitar all the time, but when she broke out her violin, I was just like, oh my God, so amazing. I was always in awe of her ability.
Yeah, man. When I in my head canon, when I sort of read, the Judas Priest thing and the Juilliard thing, I thought, all right, you know what? You probably have a good chance of making money as a metal musician, as much chance as you would being a concert, a virtuoso. You might, if you've got the option between the two, if you're already getting the concert gig, the orchestra gigs. I know you're saying that there weren't any vacancies, but she had some under her belt. Why not, as a side gig, try and do the metal thing and just see if I can make something of it? And obviously, she's still doing it, so it's got to have. And
obviously it had some effect on her.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, if you were to quantify Kat's success, you'd look at the average soloist salary versus whatever Kat's raking in, which she's presumably still doing. If she's if my Facebook feed is anything to go by.
The world-class violin soloists who make a decent living, one hand, whereas a rock musician can make an okay living,
Yeah.
doing mediocre level
Yeah.
sales. So it was an easy calculation to make, I think, for her.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about.
Are you familiar with her sister?
No, tell me everything.
She has an older sister who's an opera singer. Also went to Juilliard, and is now her manager, I believe.
Right, it's all coming together. Right. Because
she took over their father's PR firm when he died, I guess, and then she became Kat's manager.
That's it. You know why? Because I thought
she's very normal. She's like not loud, not crazy. Very different from Kat.
Yeah. When I did the email interview with Kat, and then as a result, I got added to the PR mailing list, and obviously it's Thomas PR, and obviously I get the Great Kat emails, and I was thinking like, what? Because when I was trying to pull together like the script for like the mini doc, I'm thinking like, obviously we've got the character of the cat. She's very busy on social media, and she does generate a lot of like content in terms of, she clearly got like a studio in the corner. She's got people around her who help her with her projects. Is she got a proper job on the side? That's what I'm thinking. And then when I get these emails from Thomas PR, I'm seeing who I won't name her for the sake of it. I'm seeing the person who's responsible for the PR, and I'm looking at Kat. I'm looking at her. I'm looking at Kat. I'm going, that's Kat. I'm thinking it's Kat. I'm thinking Kat's got a side job of doing PR because
that's funny.
Yeah, if you look at the interviews in the 90s, right? You've set me off, mate. You've set me off. If you look at the interviews, she's sitting down, she's talking to these dudes about like Bill Gates and Microsoft and the world of computers. And obviously she brought up one of her albums, a follow-up, which was like Cyberspeed, Beethoven, or whatever it was called. Mm-hmm. It was like a CD-ROM experience for Windows 95 and all that wonderful stuff from that heyday. And then it sort of hit me because the PR firm, it seems to focus on IT. And I'm like, that's what Kat must have done. She must have been doing the music on the side, and then she'd go over and she'd do PR for IT because she knows how to do it. But now you tell me that's not the case, and the Great Kat is being great is a full-time fucking job.
Exactly. Yes, it is.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And her whole family was behind her. Her parents and her sister, and she had lots of support.
Well, that's a musical family, right? So I guess that's the link in the chain between the two. If it's a musical family, then all the empathy towards each other. It's like, well, Kat, you might not have been Yngwie Malmsteen, but you certainly did. You're raking in dough with these branded panties which you're selling. So if that knocks the mortgage down, then just knock yourself out.
Yep.
So crazy. That's insane. That is insane. I can't believe it. I knew that she had a sister, and I knew that she was level-headed, courtesy of Kurt. Kurt told me that. But it means a lot more now.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's you blow my mind, man. Blown my mind.
All the secrets, the secret info.
How the sausage is made.
Right. Yes.
I can't remember where I was going with that at all. I've been completely knocked off track now, but I'm going out holding the golden egg of knowledge now.
I think we went down the Morton Downey Jr. rabbit hole and somehow wound up there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were talking. I was going to talk about the label, wasn't I? In terms of like the so obviously at the time it was Steve Ricardo and Holly Lane. They were the
Holly,
two.
yes.
Rest in
peace.
peace.
Holly was our main contact.
Really? I thought it might have been Steve. I think it was Steve that must have signed Kat, and then it must have been Holly picking it up from. Actually, you know what? Steve left.
Yeah.
Before the album came out. That was what happened. Yeah.
That might be it. Because I remember seeing Holly all the time and Monty. Steve. Yeah, I don't remember Steve that much.
Yeah. I think the timings don't add up there for Steve that much. But what's your experience with Holly then? Because obviously she passed away in June, so I'm trying to.
Oh, really? Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's interesting because she passed away in June, and I started like reading for this project a few months after, and it's like, oh man, I've got to ask everyone about Holly now because everyone's grieving still because not a lot is known about how she passed, or obviously a lot of people either hadn't spoken for years or they spoke to her the week before. There seems to be in this particular industry that everyone's on everyone's phones, as in like everyone's contacts are on everyone's phones, and everyone is very accessible. Mm-hmm. So when she passed, I think the wounds are still very raw. And for me, my only analogy I've got is they dug up Richard III in a car park in Leicester. And as a country, we all sort of went, that's interesting because that's really important to our history. I didn't know Holly. So now I'm reading all this stuff about her. It's kind of like, oh, well, she's really critical to this entire process. And that knowledge is
absolutely. Yeah, man. She was a sweetheart. I remember Holly very fondly. And, very supportive of the band. And, she was definitely somebody at the label that we could count on.
Yeah.
And, she, of anybody there, she was at probably the most band rehearsals and record company meetings or whatever.
Yeah. When you turned in the first mixes for Worship Me or Die, was there any contention with that, or with the label like, yep, sounds good, put it out?
Yeah, no, there wasn't a whole lot of back and forth with the label. They were happy with what we did. I mean, years later, a lot of, I would read online sort of some criticism about the mix, that it's not heavy enough, or, and I don't know, maybe that was also part of my influence, that I was coming from a rock background more than a, straight ahead speed metal background. So, I don't know.
I've not heard anything bad about the mix, to be fair.
Okay. I take it personally because I was involved, but there wasn't a whole lot of back and forth. We just submitted it and they were like, yeah, fine.
Cool. Very cool, I suppose. Did you get to meet Monty then? Because you mentioned his name in a couple of minutes ago.
Yep.
So you must have been
Monty. I remember Monty more than Steve. Monty was sort of the face of Roadrunner at the time, really.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Case was never available for meetings.
Yeah, I mean, he was too busy trying to pull the strings on a more macro level. It's interesting, especially in the early 90s, what the label ends up doing, or at least trying to do. Like when it tries
didn't they sign Nickelback?
Well, yeah, this is the thing. That arm of Roadrunner was late 90s, early 2000s, and it was like that's not the Monty Connors of the world. That's a guy called Ron Berman. All his bands have like a particular sort of like thread in the same vein of like they're all sort of hard rock, Nickelback, post grungy stuff. But it's the early 90s, they start acquiring smaller labels and working in like alt rock and one thing I like, I call it bronzecore. If you've watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because all the bands that they start putting out would have suited playing the bronze at the time, and moving away from metal and something more conventional. And I think the idea is they wanted to be a big major label, obviously an indie label, but a major label.
Sure.
That part of the journey is pretty interesting. That's what Case was trying to orchestrate in his acquisitions, and I think that's the seat he sat in for that time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Monty was fairly, he was visible and around a lot. Holly, we had a lot of meetings about the music video that I was personally involved in, because I was also a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of friends who were filmmakers, and I was trying to get various people involved in our music video, as much as I could. And we had lots of meetings with with Monty about money, and usually it was like, yeah, no, we're not going to spend that much money. I was like, I got these guys. They directed the video for this great new band. What the hell are the hands inside the puppet head? Anyway.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we could do a great video for $20,000. Like, no. Not even close.
That's the Roadrunner MO.
So we eventually found somebody to do it for $5,000. That was the Metal Messiah video.
Yep.
Yeah, we were on a stage.
Yeah. Surrounded by the worshippers,
rabid fans,
which I think was it became a I don't know if it was a live staple, but of the live shows I've seen, eventually you'd get the guys on stage and they'd all do that in front of cats, getting a boots licked and all that fucking stuff. That's mad. You'd never have that these days.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting thing, and it was always, she was trying to get the band to worship her as well as the fans. There was some tension about that.
Yeah,
which is why people kept quitting. It's like, we're in the band, they should worship us too.
Yeah.
that was not Kat's idea.
So let's now plot our route from the album into the album cycle, the touring cycle, or whatever happened to you leaving the band. This is now for me a blind spot.
We did, well, by the time we did the music video, there was a different drummer.
Okay.
So the drummer in the music video is not Adam Killa. It's a different guy named Rob Banks.
Yeah.
Who was a great drummer, but again, didn't last that long.
Right.
Lasted long enough to make the music video and then went off to greener pastures. So we were talking about putting a tour together, but we just couldn't keep a drummer in the band. And I had made friends with one of the guys who auditioned for the band but didn't make the band. A guy named Todd. And Todd and I just got to be friends, and we started playing together. And I had another friend who was a great guitar player who I later went on to play in several bands with. And we just started rehearsing together, and Kat heard about it. And she was disapproving. She's like, you can't play with other people. I'm like, of course I can. What are you talking about? And she was like, if you don't stop playing with those people, you're out of the band. I'm like, I'm out of the band. Click.
Oh dear.
That was it. It's like, if we're not going to play, there's no band to be in. Like there was no drummer, there were no rehearsals. There were no solid dates. So at that point, I was like, I'm looking for my next gig.
Yeah. You're a working musician at this point, or are you holding down a job at the same time? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So obviously, it's a gig.
I always did. I worked on movie sets as a PA, back in those days, which was a pretty good gig, paid well, and you could, work several days a month and make your rent. Spend the rest of the time playing.
Yeah.
So there were a bunch of guys who did that were rock and roll guys who were also part of the crew on music videos.
Right. Yeah.
At that time in the 80s, the golden era of music videos.
Have you been in touch with Kat since?
What's that?
Have you been in touch with Kat since that time?
I believe there was like a brief interaction, like around early 2000s, about something. I don't remember what. just like an email interaction like you had. It was just brief and business-like. It might have been when Facebook was happening, and I may have tried to friend her, and she's like, "You may join my Facebook fan club, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, come on."
That sounds about right.
And yeah, that would have been the last time I had any interaction with her. Although, I, of course, as you, I check in on her from time to time and see what she's up to, because she's an interesting person.
Well, I've just found out she's not got a job. And I now found out that this is what she does. So my checking in on her is now taking a different slightly different.
Right. Yeah. As far as I know, she has never had a job. All she does is play music.
Fair enough. If it's I'd say if
it's good work if you can get it.
That's it, man. If it's knocking those mortgage payments down, then power to it, man. And like this is the thing, man. It's like you're told when you're younger, there's the whole don't compromise argument. Like if you want to do something, go get it and all that stuff. And she just fucking did it. She did it in spades, and she did it for a long time. And I guess that was I sometimes when I refer to Kat's career, it's sometimes like I sometimes feel like I'm referring to her as if she's a has-been. She's not at all. She's still doing exactly the same thing. And I'm the one that's trying to fight her corner, saying she needs a seat at the table because there's some young guitarists who are lacking this kind of influence. But where was I going with that? Yeah, the advice is you just got to keep going and keep gunning for what you want. But that didn't get her the seat at the table.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's the working example of you got to be able to work with people and compromise and understand empathy. And yeah, she's an enigma.
She's an enigma wrapped in a conundrum.
I hope I've demonstrated why I'm interested in this.
So you're a guitar player. That's how you got into exploring Kat's background.
Yeah. Like I say, it just ended up. It's just a gap for me. There's some great live footage of her doing one of the Paganini runs, and I was like, "That's interesting. I wonder if Malmsteen did something like that." And I put on a Malmsteen video, and I was just like, "Fuck is this?" It's like comparatively, it's like, I mean, virtuosity is like great if you're into it, right? It's not great if it's at the expense of everything else that's happening on the stage. So if you like guitar wankery, and if you like paying 5 other members of your band 250 quid a gig, great if you can afford it. But Malmsteen could quite easily just go out with a backing track and do what he's doing and probably deliver a better experience for everyone else. But Kat is like the real fucking deal. She's really bridging the gap between those two worlds, and I think that's really valuable, and it's completely missing from today's sort of lexicon of music. So I'm always going to fight her corner, but the lessons learned are you gotta learn to.
Yeah, I wonder.
You can't go through 8 drummers. Drummers are the hardest ones to find.
Right. Yeah. I wonder who would be even equivalent to Kat nowadays. If there is anybody.
I'm sure this is the thing. Now we're in like the YouTube age. I think there's plenty of people who are doing that kind of thing, but haven't got the clout, I guess. Or maybe they haven't got the niche of being Kat. I think that's what Kat's got going for her at the minute. Kat is Kat there, and Kat isn't like anyone else.
Right.
I
think there are female violinists, doing their YouTube videos, and female guitarists doing their videos. I don't know if there's anybody who could do both like Kat does.
Well, that's one thing, man. And I'm not sure I don't know what the state of female shredding is as well. I think she's still just got enough behind her to bring the goods to the table. I think she just needs to sort of, if it was me, right? If I was on the phone with her now, I'd say, sort your website out. It's a fucking mess. Sort your Spotify out. It's a fucking mess. Get all your singles, just move into like a collection, because I need to be able to navigate this stuff. Slow down the PR stuff, because I don't know if you're advertising something that came out yesterday or 5 years ago. That's it for me. I'm lacking the narrative, and I guess that's probably why another reason I'm interested in it, because I don't know the narrative. She's not telling me that the narrative is. I've had to pull
Right.
all former members of the crew, the production team, of the label to say what happened because I can't tell. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's just interesting as hell. Did she make Dave Mustaine cry? That's another question I've got written
down. Maybe. I don't.
Might have been before your time. Might have been after your time.
I've met Dave Mustaine a few different times.
Yeah.
I don't remember. One of them might have been with Kat. My one Dave Mustaine story that I remember is hanging out with him at the Cat Club in New York. And it was sort of mutual friends. It's like, oh, this is my friend Abe. He used to play guitar in Agnostic Front. And Dave goes, so what? I used to play guitar in Metallica.
Oh dear.
Thanks, asshole.
Fuck me. Fucking hell. Yeah. All right, man. Well, that's all I've got in terms of the cat. I mean, I have a couple of questions which are sort of completely non-contextual. If you'll like to hear them. First of all, have you ever seen a ghost?
Seen? No. Heard? Maybe.
Oh, great. Tell me everything.
I grew up in New England, which is full of haunted houses.
In terms of like, if I'm not mistaken, it's just like the oldest part of the country, isn't it?
Yes.
Being English, I'm in a unique position to sort of comment.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Lots of really old buildings. One of the houses that's in my family is pretty old. It's probably 150 years old, which is, decent age for a house. But it is famous for having ghosts. Right. And lots of people have seen ghosts there. And I have at various times lived there or, spent a month there in the summer or whatever. And one night in particular, there was, was it wind? Was it some sort of poltergeist? Is very undetermined.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff going on upstairs in the house, doors opening and closing, and mysterious footsteps, and I'm the only one in the house.
Yeah.
So I was basically downstairs on the couch with a blanket, like I'm just gonna go to sleep and try and forget all this happened. That is the closest I have to a ghost story.
Cool. I've been asking everyone. It's ranged from I saw her. She was wearing a white gown. She was coming down the steps to no, Jim, you're off your fucking head. Stop asking stupid questions. So
I mean, a lot of friends and from the old country who are also familiar with the house have seen spirits in that house. That I know people who are like, I saw this woman in an old 1900s garb. She came in, she sat next to me on the bed, and she comforted me, and then she was gone.
That's so strange.
Yeah, in that house. So it's like other people are definitely experiencing things there.
One thing I love.
Although, to be fair, I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but who knows?
It's I mean, whether you believe or not, if things that happen are unexplained, it always occupies that part of your mind, doesn't it? Where it's like, there they go. The best one I heard. Do you remember a guy called Liam Lynch?
Liam Lynch.
He did a song about nearly 20 years ago now called The United States and Whatever. And he was a director for a few music videos. He did the Tenacious D film. That's that.
Oh, cool.
He does this. He did a guest spot on a podcast with a because how do I describe it? He did a podcast and then he said, oh yeah, I've got an effed up ghost story for you, so I'm going to come back and do that. And he did it, and it's great. And it's 20 minutes of him talking about when he went to university in Liverpool in the UK. And obviously Liverpool is a very, very, well, what you regard old in New England, we got about 750 years to add on to that.
Yes, exactly.
And his story is absolutely fascinating. It's got Freemasons, it's got prostitutes, it's got everything. It's got absolutely. I'll send you the link if that's your kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's great.
Love to see it.
Yeah. Have you got any bands which you'd like to plug and sort of signal boost? We haven't got a massive listenership on this podcast, but it will be online in perpetuity, like the intellectual property rights that Roadrunner retain of your music.
Yeah, I don't have a band right now. I'm trying to get together with my first band.
Oh, cool.
The guys that I played with in high school, or whatever you call it in England.
Secondary school.
Primary school or whatever. And, we're sort of scheming to maybe try and record a record this year, if the pandemic ever ends.
What's driving that then? Is it just that everyone you used to play with still plays and there's no reason not to?
Yeah, they're all still musicians, and we've all sort of gone our separate ways, but kept in touch. And so, maybe 6 months from now, I'll have something to push.
Cool. Something I probably should have asked earlier. Any hard feelings with Cat, or is it just was it just business at the time? That's how it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Like I described our last our last phone conversation. Everybody got to that point.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, I can't do this anymore.
That's fine. I think I just wanted to bookend that because I think she watches these whenever there's a great Cat related interview. I think she reposts it and then quotes from it. So she's listening. I don't want her to think I'm trying to put her in a bad light in any way.
Nothing but respect for Cat. Very talented individual. I learned so much working with her. Nothing but love and respect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Blink twice if you're in danger, though, obviously. And I'll do what I can. Oh dear. All right, man. I'm gonna let
Cat call me.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to? Anything else I missed? I think we've covered the chronology quite well there, and we've gone into the roots as to what she's about.
Got some good stories in there. We spent a few weeks in Philadelphia working on the record. Adam and Kurt and I would go down to the Jersey Shore and hang out and drink and not tell Cat. He was friends with some of the Philadelphia Eagles, NFL football team, so we would hang out with those guys, which was fun back at the time.
That's a cool dude.
So we had lots of fun making the record. Adam was there basically doing his parts, and as soon as he was done, it was like, go back to New York.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I wish you the best. I'll keep you posted on the goings on.
Absolutely.
And I owe you
Thank
a pint if I end up your neck of the woods, or you end up in my neck of the woods.
Absolutely. Yeah. Who knows? Let's hope for the best in the coming year.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, thanks very much. I'll keep in touch.